In this WrestleTalk news, Ringside News has a Twitter meltdown, Johnny Gargano teases an exciting AEW match, what's next for Candice LeRae, and Tempest reviews last night's episode of NXT 2.0.
Support WrestleTalk!
Usually when we talk about people having meltdowns in wrestling, we're generally referring to an actual wrestler or a wrestling fan, and it's rare that we're actually talking about a wrestling news website whose job it is to be objective and informative rather than outspoken and controversial. However, the latter took place yesterday with Ringside News, which is known for its more tabloid style of wrestling news, posting a series of tweets which caused a lot of controversy. The official Ringside Twitter account tweeted a number of transphobic comments about former AEW Women's Champion Nyla Rose. Things didn't stop there, with Ringside News founder Steve Carrier repeating the transphobic comments about Rose on his personal Twitter account. Ringside News' official account then claimed that AEW President Tony Khan had messaged them asking what the issue was, posting a screenshot of the message which was allegedly sent to them by Khan. Finally, they claimed former AEW champion Chris Jericho also messaged, to which they supposedly sent back an expletive-filled message. As a result of all this behavior, USA Today has announced that it has terminated its affiliate agreement with Ringside News, citing the inappropriate tweets as the reason for the termination. This is far from the first time Ringside News has caused controversy on Twitter, with the account also recently sending serious insults to both Denise Salcedo and Sean Ross Sapp. This seems like as good a time as any to remind everyone to be kind and to support each other. There really is no room for hate in this world. But now, on to some lighter news. We have a lot of talented married couples in wrestling these days, but they don't come much more talented than Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Until recently, the couple were two of the shining lights in NXT 2.0, and Gargano particularly was one of the reasons original Black and Gold NXT had the excellent reputation it had. Since leaving WWE in December 2021, Gargano has been spending time looking after his son Quill, but many fans expect him to return to the ring soon. The latest tease for a potential return came during the latest edition of Sammy Guevara's vlog, which Gargano appeared on. Guevara suggested a match between the two would be pretty badass, and Johnny agreed. He then said something would be missing from the match, which was a reference to his wife, Candice LeRae. How would you like to see Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae debut in AEW? Let me know in the comments. And speaking of Candice LeRae, something a lot of wrestlers do after leaving WWE is create a store on Pro Wrestling Tees, which is one of the largest indie wrestling internet stores. Although if you want the best t-shirts in the world like the one I'm currently wearing, then head over to WrestleShop.com for more. LeRae has now relaunched her PWT store, which could well suggest she is not planning on returning to WWE, as joining WWE pretty much means you're signing over all merchandise rights to Vince McMahon. Please head on over to Pro Wrestling Tees and check out her and many other very deserving wrestlers' merch. It really helps support independent wrestling. And now, hot tag over to Tempest for his review of last night's NXT 2.0.
I mean, last week's show was better. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? Tempest is back with another review of NXT 2.0 in about 5 minutes. So this show opened with another tag team match. This time, instead of pitting the awesome talent that's featured in the NXT North American Championship division, well, this time we got probably the first tag team match that the Wise Guys have ever had on national TV. In fact, I can guarantee that it is. It's pretty unfair to expect more than like a 2 out of 5 out of a match like this, but if I'm pressed to give this a number score, I mean, yeah, it's gotta get a bad one. Malik Blade had a rough night. He fell off the top rope during his hot tag and got you f***ed up chants from the crowd, a crowd that, mind you, is so polite that they will chant "shut the hell up" at the heels. The Wise Guys got the win after incessant distraction, and this wasn't the tag team match we got last week, not by a long shot. This gets a 1 out of 5. On a show where wins and losses really don't matter that much, this mattered. I sure hope he wins. Sanga of the Thunder yeeted Wesley across the ring and beat him down until Wesley mounted an excellent comeback. It was a short comeback, however, as Sanga managed to pick up his first win on TV with a big choke slam. I mean, his first win had to come somehow, I guess. Zion Quinn tried to get in Wesley's face after the match, but Wesley had earned the respect of Sanga the Friendly Thunder Giant as he threw Zion Quinn to the ground, and it appears that these guys are maybe a team now, perhaps just an alliance. This was probably the best match that Sanga ever had. It's not saying much, but a 2 out of 5 is better than a 1 out of 5. I just want everyone to know that most indie shows that are filled with people having their first few matches are this bad too. It's not just a WWE thing. Joe Gacy left baby pictures of Braun Breaker in the locker room while Elektra Lopez took on Alba Fire. Meanwhile, we all watch as commentary tries to speak about the history of Alba Fire while not talking about any specifics or mentioning her name was Kaylee Ray as we all slowly go insane. This was indeed a match. I had really been hoping that Alba Fire's finisher would be called like the Fire Blast or the Fire Spin so I could make incessant Pokemon jokes every time she wrestled. But no, she won this match with a Swanton Bomb. Elektra takes out her frustrations on Cora Jade's popcorn and they're gonna have a match next week. I'd love to converse with people who have like strong feelings on NXT 2.0 at this point. Julius Creed says that this is Dynamite. It's not. That's the other show. Roxanne Perez managed to win her semi-final match in the Breakout Tournament, defeating Lash Legend with her Code Red finish, newly being dubbed the Pop Rocks, a much better name than the Code Rock. Code Rock sounds like a spy spin-off of Camp Rock, and now I really want to see that movie. This was a really clean Code Red too. This match gets a 3 out of 5 just for this finish alone. That's unfair. Roxanne is tremendous, and Lash still has a long way to go, but she will get there. Probably, maybe. Kayden and Carter jump Toxic Attraction backstage as Mandy Rose makes her way out for her match with Indy Hartwell. I had an epiphany during this match that if you treat all the people who got released on this show in kayfabe like they got Thanos snapped and everyone's just uncomfortable talking about it, it makes this show make so much more sense. Because otherwise you have to sit through matches like this with Indy Hartwell taking on Mandy Rose, with Wade Barrett and Vic Joseph unable to talk about why Indy Hartwell is now wrestling by herself. Her family is just gone. Where did they go, Vic? Where did they go? A good chunk of this match took place during the commercial break, and when they came back, Mandy hit a nice rolling elbow and then said, "You'll never look like me." I will allow this because she is a heel, but it is very hard to hear that line during a match that really isn't very good and feel some kind of way for the NXT Women's Championship division. Toxic Attraction, Kayden and Katana had a pretty naff brawl that spilled into the ring that allowed the distraction to get Mandy Rose the win. Mandy was then viciously, savagely attacked by the ruthless Wendy Chu, who hit her with a sack of basketballs and footballs and other Nerf products. A sack that refused to open when called upon. If this sort of thing is your thing, I'm glad you have your thing. Meanwhile, 1 out of 5. Pretty Deadly is upset that Roderick Strong hurt himself in training and pulled out of their match for this show, but then said that the Creed brothers would get an NXT title shot in your house. It's a lot of men to be having in your house. They don't seem very pleasant. We then had Fallon Henley taking on Tiffany Stratton in the other semifinal match in the Breakout Tournament, Nikita Lyons of course being replaced by Fallon Henley due to an injury. They continue to put over Tiffany Stratton's athletic background in this match, and it really shows. She has so much grace in the ring. She just looks so much more crisp in the ring when she's allowed to integrate her gymnastics into her offense. Stratton targeted Fallon Henley's knee during this match to the point that Fallon could not even make a single step forward when she tried to walk. Stratton hit quite a twist after a bunch of very impressive flippy flips, and she managed to get the win in a very good match. 3 out of 5. Kayden Katana and Wendy Chu want all 3 titles from Toxic Attraction in your house, and I don't know about you, but I don't want anything toxic in my house. Has this joke been beaten to death yet? Meanwhile, Thea Hale will pick her university next week, and if there isn't a table with a bunch of hats laid out on it, I don't want it. Back in the locker room, Duke Hudson tells Braun Breaker that he has daddy issues, with Braun Breaker then throwing him into the locker. Duke says that Joe Gacy is right and that Braun is breakable, making him sound a lot more like a Kim Possible character. You got Kim Possible, Ron Stoppable, and Braun Breakable. It really hasn't been subtle, but I like that you get to see a slow progression of Braun Breaker losing his mind over the course of the whole show, rather than just in one segment. Ike Jiro got a lot more offense in during his match with Von Wagner than I expected. He hit the ring a house of fire and hit a handspring back elbow to get an early advantage, and despite an excellent Acai moonsault in this match, this was Von Wagner's match to win. Jiro's been played for comedy more often than not in NXT, but he willed this to being one of Von Wagner's better matches. Jiro made this a 3 out of 5 match, and Josh Briggs cleared the ring afterwards, and it is here that I will tell you that Vic Joseph and Wade Barrett argue on this show incessantly, and it is insufferable. Toxic Attraction cut angry promos on their in-your-house opponents, and then Cameron Grimes crashed the barbershop. Grimes says Mello was just a champion, and Mello says that Grimes is just a title holder. Grimes set up a match with Nathan Frazier next week. That should be excellent, and I quite enjoyed this little segment right here. Joe Gacy speaks with Druids, and then we got the main event of Duke Hudson taking on Braun Breaker. Duke spent the match trying to bait Braun Breakable into Braun breaking, while Joe Gacy made his way from the crow's nest down the ringside. There were some interesting moments in this match with Duke Hudson trying to use the Steiner recliner, but the whole thing broke down when Braun Breaker was thrown outside. Breaker fought with both of Joe Gacy's Druids, and then a chair was introduced, and he tried to hit Joe Gacy, who was on the apron, and turned and instinctually hit Duke Hudson for the DQ. Now, this isn't the worst DQ finish I've ever seen. It does advance the story that they are telling, but I cannot feasibly look at this ring being populated by outside interference and not think that it should just be thrown out on the spot. I get that's not how WWE has functioned, but it just doesn't make sense. The match itself was fine, but there really wasn't anything to write home about on this episode of NXT from an in-ring standpoint, so to build this whole show to this match with this finish just is a little bit tough. Not the best or worst main event I've seen on this show, a 3 out of 5 match to cap off a 2 out of 5 show. Welcome back to NXT, me. And that just about wraps it up from me. If you want more coverage of this episode of NXT, make sure you check out the Mocha 2.0 podcast over on WrestleTalk podcast later on today. Until then, stay beautiful and don't sharpen your pencil while the teacher is talking. Bye-bye.
In this WrestleTalk news, contradictory stories about Sasha Banks and Naomi's walkout from WWE have surfaced, last-minute plans for WWE's tag title unification, Ollie's review of Raw, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to Always On for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
The saga of Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out from WWE continues.